Good afternoon to you, too, my brother. I am doing the best I can. I am always thankful for the blessings that I have.
Yes, sir.
And I think we all have to make sure that that's in the forefront. But I'm feeling good today. And one of the reasons I am, Brother Glenn, is that the fact that we've got Minneapolis Police Chief Eriddo on the show today. So I'm excited to have him on to talk about a lot of different things. We had teased this show last week. So,
yes, sir.
Definitely excited and look forward to hearing what he has to say. And I know Minneapolis does too. So
I know that's
excited
right.
about today.
I know that's right. I'm excited as well. Everybody get your tape recorders. I don't know if anybody has tape recorders like we used to have back in the day. Remember the cassette player?
Listen, brother, the phone done took over everything.
Oh, man. No, well, they better record it on their iPhones and whatever you got to do.
You can do that too. That's right.
Mr. Anthony Taylor, man, we thank you for everything that you do because you give us the information. And I know I have mixed feelings, sir. Can I just let you know how I've been feeling this Monday and Tuesday, Sunday, man? I was like, I don't even want to play no music, but I had to come here. My people uplifted me, and they said, keep on banging, man, keep on banging, because I want to get out there on the streets. And then I am out there, but at the same time, when I'm out there protesting at 10 o'clock, I want to get back in. What do you think about that, sir? I want to get everybody back in their spot safely, and so we can get back up for the next day. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's important for folks to be able to express themselves, right? And as a people, we definitely want to make sure that we have things to say. And one of the things that helps us as a people, Glenn, heal is the fact that we can be in community together, right? So being around other folks and experiencing what unfortunately is trauma, being able to be around us and to be able to heal together is one of the most important things. And obviously, if you can do it peacefully, and get home safe is important. But one of the beautiful things about it is that as a people, as a city, we're able to really get together and provide each other with a little bit of space to heal. So
yes, sir.
I'm all for folks being out there and activating voice, but just do it peacefully.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Look forward to the show less than 6 minutes away. Mr. Anthony Taylor, Minneapolis 360. I'm sticking around. I'm coming back here with you, man. It's going to be off the chain.
It's going to be off the chain, brother. Expect the unexpected. You know it, right? That's what you say.
Expect the unexpected. You find yourself at the end of the road, please tie a knot and hold on tight. Because ain't nobody bad like you. God bless.
This hour of programming on KMOJ. Love to love, 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 love to love your love. 89.9 KMOJ FM and KMOJ HD1 Minneapolis, St. Paul. Bringing unity to the community. 89.9 KMOJ, the People's Station.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Anthony Taylor, Minneapolis 360. Mr. Anthony Taylor, you are live. How are you, sir?
I'm good today, Brother Glenn, and thank you as always. Always tune in to you before I get on my show, and what a great song to be able to go out to and to introduce this next guest with Marvin Gaye. It's a beautiful thing. Minneapolis, welcome. My name is Anthony Taylor. I am the African-American Community Specialist for the city, neighborhood, and community relations. This is Minneapolis 360. As you all know, we have been going weekly since the start of the Derek Chauvin trial, and it is always my pleasure to be with you on this Wednesday at 1 o'clock for this really a special edition of Minneapolis 360. And I think I teased it last week and told folks that Minneapolis Police Chief Eriddo would be our guest today, and I am honored and blessed to have him. I know this brother is busy. As anyone can believe, with some of the things that are going on in this show. But before I welcome Chief Eriddo, I just want to give my condolences to the Daunte Wright family and to all his loved ones. As everyone knows, Minneapolis, there was a killing of another unarmed black man Sunday night or Sunday afternoon in Brooklyn Center. So I just want to make sure that I acknowledge that. I would be remiss if we did not say his name, or at least me when I get on this show, to be able to acknowledge that. So I want to give my condolences out to Daunte Wright's family. I know the city is with heavy hearts and anxiety filled within the last year or so, and especially within the last couple of weeks since the trial has started. So I wanted to make sure I acknowledge that. But with that being said, I want to bring on Minneapolis Police Chief Eriddo to the show, Chief, and welcome and thank you for being on today.
Mr. Taylor, thank you and your 360 audience for having me. And I as well want to offer my sincere condolences and thoughts to Mr. Wright's family and loved ones.
Chief Eriddo, I know you're busy, sir, so we'll get right into it, and I appreciate you coming on. A lot of our listeners already know kind of your story as far as you started in the Minneapolis Police Department, but just give us a little more history on your start here within the city, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. So, proud to have been born and raised here in Minneapolis. Really grew up right at 37th and Park Avenue South. So, while I had relatives from the north side, I'm kind of passionate and stubborn about making sure that I take care of South Side as well. But I decided, I was always taught at a very early age about the importance of service to our communities and neighborhoods and giving back. And so that journey led me to join the Minneapolis Police Department back in 1989. And so I've been a part of this department since then, and I've been very fortunate to have there were so many people and elders, quite frankly, that knocked down doors and fought battles and really provided me a pathway and an opportunity so that I could be in the position I am today. So I'm always mindful and so appreciative of that. I've also throughout my career, I've had an opportunity to start as a patrol officer. I walked a neighborhood beat in North Minneapolis, Golden Valley Road, and 10 years ago. I was able to serve as a school resource officer at Franklin Middle School. I've been a detective and led teams as a lieutenant and was a commander and worked my way up the ranks. And so I'm very humbled and very proud to serve our city currently as chief of the department.
Chief Eriddo, we got a lot going on in this city, right? As you know full well, and there's a lot of talk, and people hear the words or the phrases Operation Safety Net. So there's been this said many, many times throughout press conferences and the way folks get their news. Kind of explain to us what Operation Safety Net is for folks who hear this so much but not necessarily may know the ins and out of what this is and what this means.
Yeah, and so, Mr. Taylor, and to the audience, so last summer we knew that we were going to, as a city, we were going to be hosting the trial of former officer Chauvin here at Hennepin County Courthouse. So we also knew that was going to bring out demonstrations and gatherings. It was also going to attract a lot of local, national, and international attention. So it was really based on two premises. One, we wanted to make sure that everyone who chose to practice their First Amendment constitutionally protected right to come out and demonstrate and gather and protest will do so peacefully and could do so peacefully. But then secondarily, we wanted to make sure that we were doing all we could to keep our city safe in that space and that people were protected as well as our businesses. And so, in this profession, you have to have a tagline. And so what developed from that was what we called Operation Safety Net. It is a mutual or unified command system. And so that means that even though the trial is occurring in downtown Minneapolis, it's going to require to keep our people safe, to make sure that folks are able to protest and demonstrate peacefully. It's going to require more resources than just the Minneapolis Police Department. So we have members of our citizen soldiers, our National Guard, who are assisting us, Hennepin County deputies. We have state patrol officers. We have Metro Transit Police Department officers. We have a variety of different resources that are here to assist us in that. So we've had at least 8 months or so to plan for this. And I should also just say it is not just a law enforcement layered approach. It is really about community as well. And so we've had time and we continue to do outreach with our faith-based leaders, with our social workers, with our community healers, with our community patrols that you've seen that started last year. Some have been in existence for many years, but we're utilizing, AIM patrols, American Indian Movement patrols, Mother's Love, Safe Streets, we pray for peace and a variety of others. And so it's really a layered approach.
We are with Minneapolis Police Chief Eriddo talking right now about the members of the Operation Safety Net that folks have been hearing a lot about. And obviously, Chief, you talked about it, and I just kind of reiterated the city of Minneapolis, Hennepin County, state of Minnesota, Metro Transit, Ramsey County, other local jurisdictions, Minneapolis Police, Hennepin County Sheriff, just a lot of joint mutual aid partners to be able to activate and keep folks safe in what you talked about. And I'm glad you said that, because there's a lot of talk about that, Chief. And as people wonder why we have these much offices and agencies on the streets, is this could be because, Chief Rondo, that it might be a situation where law enforcement thinks that possibly folks in this city will be unhappy with this verdict, is the reason why all of these folks are here today or been in our city for a while?
So, Mr. Taylor, 8 months ago, and even today, as I sit here having this conversation with you and your listeners, I do not know what that ultimate verdict is going to be. And so that was not thought. We certainly did not think about what the verdict could be back then, but we just knew that regardless of whatever the verdict is, there will be those who will have a reaction from it. We know that our communities have endured trauma for a long time, and the results of the verdict could potentially trigger trauma as well. And so we just wanted to make sure that we had enough resources in place to do that. Two other things to just note, too. We are a much smaller or leaner department than we were even a year ago. Some of that has been brought about publicly, that we do not have as many men and women in uniform with the Minneapolis Police Department that we had a year ago. So that's going to require more assistance. And also last year, unfortunately, many of our communities and neighborhoods suffered terrible economic losses. We're still a community, a city that's reeling from the pandemic. There's been economic hardships that many have faced and continue to face in our communities. And so we really wanted to make sure that we had enough resources in place that would provide safety, that would have a community outreach component, and that people could continue to protest, demonstrate, and gather peacefully. So that's really why all of those resources are in place.
We are with Minneapolis Police Chief Eriddo, and I want to kind of piggyback on that too, Chief. Safety is one of the biggest concerns that we have in the city. Obviously, you just talked about that with the things and the unrest that happened. We're seeing some different protests and rallies in different parts of our community, which is all connected if we even think about it. I mean, Brooklyn Center, Brooklyn Park, and some of those surrounding neighborhoods are still close proximity to Minneapolis. So if we talk about safety, Chief, how can you ensure the public that the folks in our community will be safe, and knowing, of course, that there's another upcoming trial that's going to happen as well in August?
That's a great question, Mr. Taylor. So I'm a firm believer that, community safety starts with community. And so for sure that if we are seeing situations or things in our community that just don't seem right, unfortunately last year during the summer, we had individuals that came into our communities and caused harm, whether that was through arsons, whether that was destroying property. We will have individuals that will try to hijack important moments and not for anything good or positive for our city. And so if individuals are seeing things like that or experiencing that, we want them to reach out and give us a call so that we can certainly follow up, look into it, and make sure that we're doing all we can to prevent those types of situations. I will tell you that, Mr. Taylor, our particularly in the African American community, our black churches continue to do so much in terms of being spaces and having spaces open so that people can decompress, so that they can gather, that they can just have thoughtful conversations and try to heal. Our community faith healers, our community healers have been playing a huge role in that. Social workers, our schools. I mean, there's been so many people that have rallied to continue to make sure that we can try to heal and reduce some of the trauma that our cities and our communities have unfortunately gone through over the last year or so. And so we'll continue to do that. And as me as chief and certainly our department, we'll continue to make sure that we lean forward and be in spaces where we can hear directly from our communities as to what they need from us, what their expectations are from us, and how I can be better as a chief and how certainly our department can be better as we move forward.
Our guest today is Minneapolis Police Chief Eriddo. And Chief, you talked about it. If you see something suspicious or it looks not right, how can folks kind of make sure that they can get the word out? Who can they call? Are there certain numbers? Are there situations where folks can call, Chief, where they can report these activities?
My apologies there. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, Chief.
Yeah, Mr. Taylor. So the first thing is that if any of our community members are experiencing what they would call a life safety emergency where they need a police response immediately, continue to call 911. That is going to be that primary number. However, if for example, if Minneapolis businesses and property owners have questions about their operations during the trial or general information, they can certainly call this number here, 612-673-499. We also have in place, which has been in place for several years now, 311. If our community members want to report a non-emergency and are just seeking city information, are the streets being closed today during the trial? Is a curfew going to be in place? They can certainly call 311, and that information will be available to them. I also just want, Mr. Taylor, your listeners to know that Mayor Fry enacted a curfew the last 2 nights. He has decided not to implement a curfew tonight. So there will not be a curfew in effect for Minneapolis tonight.
And thank you for saying that, Chief, because I know that was on a lot of folks' minds about the curfew, and I'm glad you made a point to let folks know, Chief. One of the other things, Chief, and I know you're busy, so I just have a few more questions for you, Chief. We've seen a lot of different demonstratings that's been happening in our city. And obviously we've seen the last 3 nights, things happening in Brooklyn Center. Can you talk a little bit about if folks are able to demonstrate, is there a reason to arrest folks while they're out there, whether it's A, on 38th in Chicago, B, North Side, or Lake Street, or anywhere that it can seem to be a demonstration, Chief? What's kind of the rules around that, sir?
Yeah, so, Mr. Taylor, I'm very respectful and sensitive to the fact that, when people decide to demonstrate and gather and protest, there's a reason behind that. And that reason, oftentimes it brings them there. It means that they're going to show up in their authentic self. And there can be, obviously, emotion attached to that, whether that's frustration, anger. And they have every right to be in that space and bring their genuine self. So we want to encourage that peaceful demonstrations, peaceful assembly, whether that's carrying signs and those types of things. From a public safety standpoint, what we cannot have take place is unlawful activity. So in that space of demonstration or protest, we cannot allow for property damage, destruction. We can't have individuals set fires to structures. We can't have assaultive behavior. We can't have folks assaulting one another. And so those are the things that where, if there's, how does it go from being a peaceful demonstration? And by the way, peaceful, what I mean by that, I want to make sure that doesn't mean that folks aren't going to be angry or they're not going to yell or chant. Again, they're going to bring their true selves with them in that space. But what we cannot allow is we can't have folks damaging property and assaulting other people. And so that's where we really want to make sure that we're getting the word out on that.
And that's an important part. I mean, Chief, obviously, the city's emotions is running very high right now, and with a lot of the anxiety, especially in the last couple of weeks. I'm glad you made a point to kind of talk about that too, sir, because there's a narrative in different spaces between protests, demonstrations, and riots. And we're talking about demonstrations, and he obviously talked about some of the things that obviously can and cannot happen. And I'm glad you talked about that, Chief. And one of the most interesting things that's been happening in our city, Chief Eriddo, is how are ways that folks can build trust in the Minneapolis Police Department and rebuild some of those things. And even, Chief, kind of cultivating relationships. A lot of times these are ongoing processes, right? Trust isn't just built overnight, correct? So what are some of the ways that MPD can kind of rebuild or cultivate trust in our community, Chief?
Yeah, and Mr. Taylor, you really said it so best when you said that trust is not cultivated or built in one day or in one engagement. It's something that you constantly have to work on. While I'm the chief of the Minneapolis Police Department that has several hundred members, they all have a obligation to make sure that they individually are doing everything they can to cultivate those relationships one engagement at a time. I've said this publicly before that we don't have the luxury of bringing our body of work to a call. I don't come up to you, Mr. Taylor, and go, hey, my previous 99 calls all went well. Just trust me, this one's going to work out well between me and you, Mr. Taylor. You're going to say, Rondo, what have you done for me lately? I have to prove and earn that to you at that moment. And so all of our officers have to do that. We have to also continue to press to be comfortable being uncomfortable. We have to meet our communities where they are. We have to, do more service work in our communities. We have to be out at the Sabathani community centers. We have to attend more of the community events that are going on. We have to be in space to have tough conversations. We have to continue to have conversations about the American policing institution and race in our country. And we have to continue to collaborate with our communities and allow them to shape the lens and to shape the focus of how we are going to move forward as a community, because we want to get better and we want to make sure that we're working on behalf and in service to our community members. And
Chief, folks would kind of like to know, are you working on any changes with MPD? What are some things that, and I know you've been quite busy with a lot of different policy changes that you've worked on and enacted, but what are some changes now and possibly for the future that can be done for MPD?
Well, I would just say a couple of that changes that have been made over the past several months. We've always felt, and rightfully so, that it's important to document any time we use force. And I've said it before that of all of the things that we do, the one thing that we will reasonably be judged on is our use of force. What we haven't done in the past, Mr. Taylor, is we've not documented or held to a higher level de-escalation and documented the times that we need to use de-escalation and make sure we note that. So now all of our MPD officers are required to document and utilize de-escalation, and that's so critically important. Our communities had talked about officers who are involved in critical incidents being able to see and view their body-worn camera footage before making a statement. That has changed, and so now officers involved in critical incidents must now first make their statement prior to viewing body-worn camera footage. And again, a lot of these changes have been, in part, listening and getting important feedback from our community members in that effort to try to, again, build trust and really meet our communities where they are.
We are with Chief Eriddo, Minneapolis Police Chief Eriddo, with us today. And Chief, as we wrap up this show, and you being a lifelong Minneapolis resident, coming up through the ranks of the police department and ascending to the Minneapolis Police Chief of this city. Sir, I just wanted to ask you, what are your hopes for this community in Minneapolis that you have, regardless of what this outcome may be for the former officer Derek Chauvin? Just express to the community your hopes for our city.
My hopes, Mr. Taylor, for our city is that through this process, that we can individually find spaces, wherever that may be, where we feel for us, for the individual, where we feel this is comfortable for us to begin to heal. Now, that's going to look different from people to people. That's going to look very different. But my hope is that we can find a space where that individual feels comfortable, that we can look at what healing looks like. And I know there's processes that take place before that can begin, but I hope that we can get to that point. And I'm a hopeful optimist at heart. I think about our children, and I never want today to be there tomorrow. And so I hope that we can also think about how we can work together to help shape a brighter future for our children, and also leave a legacy that our elders can look back at us and say, you know what, in those trying times, we rose up, we came together, and we tried to make sure that we are hopeful people and build a better tomorrow.
Minneapolis Police Chief Eriddo, sir, I want to thank you for joining us today. I know that you have been extremely busy during this time, and I appreciate you, and I respect you for a lot of things. And one main thing that comes across to me, Chief, that I respect you a lot is the fact that you always answer the bell. And what I mean by that is that you are always in community. You always take the time to meet with different folks. And the thing that I respect about you, Chief, is that you look people in the eye and you answer their questions. And even the tough, difficult questions, you are always doing that. And I appreciate you. And I know a lot of our listeners and our city residents appreciate the fact that you do that, sir. And for someone to answer the bell as much as you do, I think Minneapolis is very appreciative. And I am very happy that you took the time out today to join Minneapolis 360 today, sir. So I thank you so much.
Well, Mr. Taylor, first of all, thank you for your kind words. I'm always learning. I'm always trying to grow. Lord knows I'm not perfect by any means. I've just been so blessed to come from a community that has always shown me hope, support, and has whooped me upside the back of my head when I've gotten out of line too. So I appreciate my elders, but I remain hopeful that we will learn, we will grow, and we will have a bit brighter tomorrow.
Thank you so much, Chief, for being here. Appreciate you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Minneapolis, you have just heard from Chief Eriddo. Came on the show and talked about a lot of different things that I think was important. If you understood the chief and you understood the things about Operation Safety Net and the mutual aid partners that are here, I think it's important to understand, and what he kind of said was just to make sure things are protected. You can feel any type of way about the visuals that you see with the National Guards and other people in our city. If you listen to how he explained it to you, hopefully it made some sense to you. So I want to thank the chief, and I know he's busy. Listen, Minneapolis, we understand, too, that this is the third week of this trial. Their case for their defendant, former officer Derek Chauvin. So I just want to make sure that you understand that you can follow, and I'm sure a lot of you who've been listening has been following. You can follow information on minneapolis.gov.trial links to be able to find out anything that you need to do with street closures and things like that. I think that if you have been in this city and living as you are, you kind of know what's closed and what's not closed. So I want to just make sure that people understand that. Listen, we're hearing some difficult things, folks. We understand that this is the job of the defense, right? So we talked about a lot of times understanding if these things trigger you, please make sure that you find yourself in that space, understand your triggers, and try your best to really center yourselves as well. And before I go, I just want to mention quickly, and I've been talking about this the last couple of weeks, that Minnesotans now are eligible for vaccination 16 years and over. So I want to give you this website in case you're still looking for information on how to get your vaccine, and it's the vaccineconnector.mn.gov. You can fill out the application. It's definitely in different languages, so folks kind of make sure that if you do choose to take the vaccine, you're able to connect yourself. And I'll give that one more time, Minneapolis, to make sure that you get that. It's it's Vaccine Connector at mn.gov. Also, to Minnesota, that the peacetime emergency has been extended again by Governor Walz to May 14th, and that's important, right? So we're talking about evictions that cannot happen again. You can understand those things. That's important. So again, the governor has extended it another 30 days to May 14th. So I want to get folks aware and understand, please, that you are behind on some mortgage payments or rent payments that you still have to pay those, but you cannot get evicted. Minneapolis, again, I want to thank you for being here as we close out this show. It's always my pleasure. I'm happy the Chief came on. I think a lot of people wanted to hear. Also, the fact, too, that acknowledging the fact that our brother Dante Wright was murdered, and our hearts are heavy. And please, Minnesota, if you choose to go out there and demonstrate and activate your voice, please do so. Do it peacefully. Please don't put yourselves or any of your loved ones in harm, but do make sure that your voice is heard. So with that being said, Minneapolis, I will see you next week. We will have somebody from the Department of Public Safety come on and talk a little bit more as well. So again, stay tuned at 1 o'clock. Be blessed, Minneapolis. Be well, and I will see you next week.